podcast about people making the world a better place.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. Welcome to Aardvark Interviews. Your host, I almost said Kelly. She's on my mind, Teddy. But Andrew Kelly, it seems to be my name. But Kelly and our special co-host could not make it today. She had a physical calamity. So we're all praying, hoping that Kelly and the Canadian Goose will get proper medical care in Canada. I don't know what their friggin' situation is there. Yeah, you got to be on a list to see a specialist, and don't get me started. You know, everybody says, "Oh, a Canadian has beautiful health care." No, no, no. All right. So come to New York. You can see a specialist in 7 hours. All right. So this is a production of Hello, Hooray. I actually said that today. So hello, hooray. Making the world a better place through podcasts, people, something. And that's her voice too on the promo, Dave. So yeah, that's me. That's me. You can see the resemblance. You see the resemblance, right, Dave? Yeah.
The Aardvark. I was with you.
All right, good. And we got a special guest, Dave Morgan, who's a musician. He's also worked in the movies, television, theater, being in the pits, and yeah, he's been around the neighborhood. Let's put it that way. You know, it's just a couple of things. The Patreon account for Aardvark Interviews is Aardvark Interviews. And the Patreon account for Hello Hooray is Hello Hooray Live. So hit us up with those Patreon accounts. You've been doing very well lately, I noticed. So keep the contributions coming. Keep us in action. So I can bring great guests like Dave Morgan here, who's a real musician as opposed to, you know, your bathtub musicians, your, you know, listen to me, I could play an instrument kind of people. Dave, did you always know you wanted to be a musician?
I've wanted to be a musician for a very long time. I would say one thing, since this is about making the world a better place, that I'm one of those people that believes that every child is a musician, that, you know, everybody has a musical instinct and everybody starts that way. But I'm going to interpret your question as did I know I wanted to do this to make a living, to be the thing that I did in the world? And yeah, I probably started working when I was about 13 professionally. So it's been a long time. It was that or being a professional basketball player when I was around 10 or 11, and I realized that I was probably going to have better prospects as a musician. I'm not sure my family thought that, but
what about astronaut? You didn't want to be an astronaut?
wasn't in my you know, scope of thoughts to be an astronaut.
What was your first gig ever?
The first, you know, that's an interesting question. So I should start by saying I play like woodwind instruments, flutes, clarinets, saxophones, reed instruments, and I would say that aside from things like teen clubs and stuff like that, the first job where I actually got paid was playing in dinner theaters in suburban DC. I grew up in suburban DC, College Park, Maryland, just north of the district line off of Route 1. And I started there. There's a whole local dinner theater scene there. I don't know if it's still there. It's one of the most bizarre things you can imagine. I don't know, as a big
What's it called? What's it called?
Well, there are dinner theaters there. So I don't know, as a big ass actor, if you've ever had that experience, but you would get to be, you would play your part in the show, and people would arrive early and sit and eat, and then they would sit at their table and continue to drink in the sort of nightclub scenario while you did the show.
Okay.
And so that was something that that a combination of young people and old people did in the orchestra pits in those days.
Let me ask you a question right now, Dave Morgan. Is it easier to get the chicks when you're a rock god like you are?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, we'll go with sure. All right, so you're a starving musician. You're going to these dinner theater shit houses or whatever they are, and you're making your bones. You're making your bones. What was your first big break? And you said to yourself, "Wow, this may be a big break."
Well, I would say that the thing that was the one of the biggest turning. I had a couple of lucky things that happened in my life, and so I'm going to answer that kind of seriously. One of the luckiest things is that I've been lucky in that the people who taught me, helped me, supported me all along the way were remarkable talents and serious musicians. And I always thank God that I didn't get what I deserved. So the people around me were of such an incredible character. My first flute teacher was a teenage girl who lived in my neighborhood, and she went on to become the piccolo player in the Cincinnati Orchestra for 40 years. And the guy who gave me my first saxophone was even though he was teaching fifth grade band a couple of days a week, he was one of the number one reed players in Washington, D.C., a guy named Bob Soberstein. So I would say if you want to count any big break, it was being able to go to Manhattan School of Music and move to New York when I was only 18 and find a way to live here and play and learn and meet people, which I feel like it's harder and harder as time goes by. I feel like the expression ain't nothing happening but the rent is more and more common for people who are trying to get somewhere in the arts where they can make art for a living.
Right. So you're still on the ascension to the
So this
top.
is the story of in the beginning I am born, and we're following the biographical path here.
All right. So let me ask you this. Did a time ever come when you said, screw this. I'm not making any money at this shit. I'll never make it to the point I want to be. I can hardly pay my bills. I'm just packing the shit in. Did that ever come into your mind, Dave?
That happens probably
weekly.
Yeah, I mean at least weekly, where you have the feeling that it's hard if you're looking to get extrinsically rewarded for this, if you're looking for people like Andrew Kelly to tell you that you're doing a great job, then you're not in the right business. There's a joke about the I hate to tell a racist joke here, but it's a Polish joke. There's a joke about the Polish jazz musician, and of course, in the scenario of a Polish joke, the Polish person isn't supposed to be very sharp. The Polish jazz musician was only in it for the money. So, I will say I have been lucky. Yeah. Honestly, I have been really lucky because I've been able to keep doing this for 50 years. I mean, the payback is that the payback isn't that you get rich or famous or successful. A musical friend of mine said one time that he promised himself he would quit if he wasn't successful by the time he was 30. And he woke up one day, he was 30 and he wasn't successful, but he was making a living and he couldn't do anything else to make the same bread. So he just went on being the same you know, schlump of a musician that he was when he was 20, and it, you know, woke up one day and we were in our 60s. So it kind of works like that.
Dave, I know you've been nominated for awards and everything for your saxophone. I'm not laughing, actually. It's true.
Okay, that's good.
He's a little modest or whatever. I've actually seen this dude play, and it's not like your grandfather's jazz. It's like it's beautiful. It's just hopping, and it's not jazz you want to like open a vein to. Basically, it's just happy. It's kind of upbeat jazz. Then there's some melodic number, whatever. But this man's been nominated for awards in the realm of saxophone playing. Is it alto or tenor? And what the hell's the difference?
Well, that's a good question. So the difference is basically size, and
it's always size. Then
size always matters there. Yeah. And the saxophone that I play in the band that you like, the name of that band is Shui NYC.
How do you spell that?
FUNKSHUI NYC, and I play the baritone saxophone in that band. Which baritone. Is an even
there's
bigger
a third
saxophone.
One. There's a third one.
There's soprano, alto, tenor, baritone, and so I play.
Which one is the biggest? Which one has the biggest?
The baritone is the big one with the the great big thing. That's the one.
So that's the biggest schlong.
That's the biggest one to play, and also the lowest. But so yeah, I play. That's when people ask you what instrument, when people ask you what kind of music do you like to play, the answer for a musician working in New York is usually like, hey, what kind did you need? So that the band you're talking about is a project that I've been working on for the past 4 or 5 years with a co-leader, Rob Sussman, who plays the trombone. And it's just an incredible group of instrumentalists, and we play, as you said, there's a couple of rules for the band in our head. One rule for the band is that nobody's solo should go on for half an hour. You should never have that feeling that we all have to leave the stage. The other thing is that a lot of jazz music is based on popular song forms. And so I'm real familiar with popular song forms from the American Songbook that my parents would have listened to, but most of the public isn't today. So, we play takes on stuff like Cream's I Feel Free and George Harrison tunes and Everything I Do Gonna Be Funky From Now On by Alan Toussaint. And so a bunch of music that's a little more contemporary, and then the original material in the band is based on that. So we've gotten some nice critical attention for that. We've gotten press, national and international press that likes that. We've gotten some radio play here in New York and in Chicago and in Asia. And none of that makes us any particular rich situation, but it allows us to keep doing it. It's motivation to keep doing it.
All right, let me ask you a question. Have you come across the so-called greats, name-wise greats like Miles Davis, Charlie Bird Parker, or say Thelonious Monk, or Charles? Well, I know Claire. I think she was with Charles Mingus, Dizzy Gillespie, Herbie Hancock. Have you seen any of these people?
Sure.
Have you ever? What do they call it? Jamming?
Well, the fellow that I worked for, that's in that category. So everybody except Herbie Hancock that you just mentioned is now no longer with us.
Right.
And so the one thing I should say is that having the opportunity to have played with some of those people is remarkable. Yeah. The one that I worked for a number of years, and I probably learned the most from, say, jamming with, is a saxophone player and composer named Ornette Coleman, who was famous for famous for basically in 1959 the creation of free jazz. And remember, when you're thinking about free jazz, that's a verb, it's not a noun. So when you say free jazz, that was
Right.
what he was trying to do. And there's an Ornette Coleman project that I'm working on now, that's going to be at BAM in the beginning of May. And
Wow.
there are 6 original composers creating works based on Ornette's record, The Shape of Jazz to Come. And there'll be a jazz band that will feature his son, Donardo Coleman, who played with him for many, many years. And then there will be original sort of classical, you would call them, works, original concert hall works that are based on the 6 selections from Shape of Jazz to Come, written by contemporary composers. And I'm sort of the music librarian, editor, sort of working on that, because that's something that I did for Ornette for many years. So it's a great organization. It's the Bang on the Can organization in Brooklyn at the big
What's it
concert hall
called?
there. It's the band is it's the Bang on a Can organization, and I think it's the 1st of May. I know it's the first weekend of May. And that's going to be a fabulous sort of music in homage to Ornette Coleman. And there's a lot of music like that now that you can hear. You mentioned Mingus. The Mingus Dynasty Band is still alive and kicking, and they do a lot of playing with Ron Blake, the Barry player from Saturday Night Live, often plays with them. So, and you mentioned Claire playing with them. She plays Barry with them sometimes. And
cool.
So that's a fantastic band too.
Okay, is Thelonious Monk the best piano player you've ever heard?
Too strange a question. Sorry. Thelonious Monk is a unique voice. Let's say that. And what he had was that unique voice. I never heard him play live. Probably the most famous piano players that I heard live were Duke Ellington, Count Basie, and a guy named Earl Hines.
All right. So who was better, Duke, Count Basie, or this Hines creature? Who was the best out of that trio?
Again, all of those great musicians spoke with their own voice. What makes them great is their ability to speak with their own voice. So, is Michelangelo a greater painter than Leonardo? That's the fact that they each have their own voice makes them great. And for me, something that's appealing as I get older is the longevity. Somebody like Earl Hines or Duke Ellington or Benny Carter or Ornette, who continued to be a relevant voice later in their life, instead of just being sort of, popular when they were 25 or something.
All right. So you talked about free jazz. How much does this free jazz cost? No, that's just a joke. But was there a lot of improvisation that went on in early jazz? Is there improvisation that still goes on? What's up with that?
I pulled my headphones out of my ears. Was there a lot of improvisation that went on with early what?
With early jazz, is there still improvisation that goes on with jazz?
Well, absolutely. In fact, I would call improvisation part of the definition of what would make something jazz music. So you could put a lot of labels on this, but I would call the ability to improvise on some sort of structure or framework fundamental to what jazz music was. And in the early days of jazz, in the beginning of, remember that a lot of times this music is a kind of melting pot is a strange word to use, but in the early days before the age of the internet and our ability to do what we're doing here, the music you heard was the music you heard in your local joint. You went and heard something. So there were a lot of people who traveled, and they sort of spread the word as sort of traveling musicians. It wasn't, you didn't get a broadcast and get 7 million hits on Spotify in the first month. You could have been a great musician and lived in Dearborn, Michigan, and nobody outside of Dearborn ever heard you. So it was the people coming and going through those things.
Okay, so what's going on with feng shui now?
Thanks for asking. I appreciate you asking that. So, COVID has been an interesting thing. We had a bunch of projects designed to be paced out. The paced, PACED, stepped out one at a time in the beginning of the year, and a lot of them got canceled because of Omicron. So, which always sounds like Ultraman or something like that. But Omicron canceled a lot of these projects. So we've just recently finished 3 of them all together. One of them was a live stream from the Culture Lab in Long Island City, which you can still find on YouTube if you're interested. One of them was a live performance at Chelsea Table and Stage in the afternoon. They have a wonderful thing they call the Badass Brunch, where they have big bands for brunch. So we did that the weekend ago. And then we also like to play up at the Shrine on 134th Street in Adam Clayton Powell. We try to do that like 8 to 10 on a Friday night, and because there's a big local crowd that comes and hears us there.
So are those free gigs, basically?
Each one has a different thing. Free jazz, exactly. So the live stream was free to listen to, but just like here, you're encouraged to contribute your nickels and pennies and quarters if you're live streaming and listen to it. The gigs at the Shrine there is no cover or minimum, and that's kind of a great opportunity because people can come up and do it. And then the brunch, the Badass Brunch series, does have a ticket price, but it's credited like a minimum towards your food. So you'd end up spending, $20 or so if you just wanted to sit and listen. But if you wanted to sit and have brunch, it would end up being the cost of the brunch. So it balances itself out.
I know in some practices of yoga, I think it's Bikram yoga, it's supposed to be free, and people are supposed to give whatever they want or can afford. And a good friend of mine who's a teacher of yoga, by the way, told me that usually when people are given this choice, they actually give more than what would have been asked. Do you think that's true of things?
I think we share this friend, and I sort of have that experience only because that goes to the whole movement in dining where you pay what you think it's worth.
Right. I've heard about
and
this.
That it seems a little crazy, but yes, it makes a kind of sense. So from the point of view of a person making music, the thing that you should know and the audience should know, just like in comedy, we're all there are multiple relationships. There's the creators of the music, there are the people who organize the whole musical thing, and then there's the venue. Everybody needs to have, we want the jazz joints to make money so that they stay open. We don't have an adversarial relationship. Someplace like the Village Vanguard or Birdland or the Shrine or Chelsea Table and Stage, we all have good relationships with those venues because we want them to grow.
Because the goal is the same, basically.
The goal is the same, is to have people hearing music that's now, that's not that's not a record or a recreation, that's hearing something that's being created in the moment.
Do you think jazz has changed now? You talked about now. Do you think jazz has changed from being kind of traditional, kind of, sounds coming from anywhere at any time to a more formatted or more audience pleasing way of, like, when I saw your group, Feng Shui, I was just delighted. I couldn't believe what I saw because I had gone to Birdland, Bitter End, everywhere in the early days, and because that's what I do. I go places, but now I don't go anywhere. It seems I just sit here in my underwear and do these interviews. So, but I used to go out at one time, and there was more. It was totally different. It was a totally different scene. Well, then you could smoke at those places too, and there was the crush of like fumes of smoke coming up, and then there was somebody playing, hitting the drums or something, and then the bass would start, the big upright bass. What does that weigh? About 100 pounds, Dave?
It's not that it's heavy, it's just awkward.
It's very awkward. And then that would come on, and it would be almost like this fractious event going on. Some people are into that. The Aardvark, not so crazy about fractious stuff going on because his attention span's terrible anyway. So he's like this. But what do you think? Do you think it's changed?
Well, originally jazz, the concept of jazzing something up, a small amount of original take on something that was listenable. So I have to say, it's an interesting question. I think that your ability to, as a listener, your ability to make an endless amount of choices now leaves room for all of those things. I don't think that it's, the art is being curated much less specifically than it was just 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Right.
So I think it's possible for you to have whatever you want to listen to and the person down the hall to have whatever he or she or they want to listen to, and it keeps working.
Yeah, but times move on, Dave. Times move on. So I know you're painting a pretty picture of, everybody's got their own tastes and everything, but times do change. And, this is why the millennials and those freaky little bunch, call us granddad or, what is it? There's a saying they have. Do you remember?
Boomer.
Yeah.
Boomer. Later boomer.
Yeah, later boomer. So that's, which I laugh at because I understand where they're coming from. A lot of people get insulted, but I'm like, yeah, okay. And then there are these commercials on TV about these old people trying to buy shirts or something. And they just,
or like the old people that are in, we like the commercials on TV where the old people are trying to like go to the ball game or keep their house up, where you've turned into people say like, don't print the internet. You don't need to print the internet to this. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Times, I think things change, but
because I believe, and I'm going to say this, and I say a lot of things out of my ass anyway, so why not now? So I believe that feng shui wouldn't be as great as it is now if it didn't go with the times.
Well, so whenever anybody says something nice to you, you should say thank you. So yes, thank you. But that's part of the concept is. So I have to admit that. A lot of the music that I'm creating around that band, it sounds to me in my imagination like 1970s TV show themes.
Oh, that's cool.
Because that kind of resonates with me. So, but to your point, I think basing this improvisational kind of framework on something that isn't made in 1940 is certainly a big plus. Do I think, there are others making probably much more contemporary sounds, some of which we may or may not be digging ourselves. So that goes back to my comment about like there's a path for you to find something to listen to.
All right, so let me just make a point about my own experience. I learn things through experiences a lot of times rather than people saying this is what to do or whatever. I gotta experience it. So the Aardvark, went to your show. It was on Broadway. I forget the name of the place. Began with an R or something.
Did you go to the? I think you went to the one at Prohibition,
That's it, Prohibition. I believe it was.
which
Yes.
I think they're getting back started up again.
Okay, so I walked out of that club. I think there was an intermission or some shit going on, with a smile on my face and a happiness in my heart. Now, I remembered going to shows in the 80s and stuff like this, basically wanted to put my head in the oven. Now, okay, there was a different aardvark back then, but I wasn't really as happy and, like upbeat, when I heard that music as when I heard Feng Shui performing at, what was the name of the club again?
Prohibition. We have to give Prohibition
Prohibition,
their
and
due.
they'll be up and running soon.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I
I
mean that's part of what we're doing with that experience. That's not the only art that we're, that's not the only art that we're making or that I'm making or that, that's not the only thing I do to get through the day. But yes, if your question is that band motivated, is Feng Shui motivated to have a lot of energy and excitement and a positive take on things, that's the entire premise of
right. Because a
what we're
lot
building.
of times I don't want the music to make me think and be pensive. I want it to entertain me and make me feel good. Easy as
Sure.
that. I think it was Mo from the Three Stooges once said, a lot of times people want to laugh with their mouths and not with their minds. And I totally believe that. The great Mo. What
Deep
was
thoughts
his?
from Mo. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. So they made a lot of money. They
Dizzy
were on.
Gillespie said "Oobop Shabam."
What does that mean?
Oobop Shabam. It's just it's onomatopoeia. It's a phrase. It's it's a sound that sounds like a sound.
Yeah, that's a good question too. Why did they make all those jerky noises and just words in jazz?
Well,
Because is it because
okay. So
we're a cool cat, baby? I'm a cool cat.
there are two takes on what this is. So Oobop Shabam, which also happens to be the name of Ji Min Lee's Saturday jazz program on Korean radio.
Of course it
Oobop
is.
Shabam is a phrase like bebop or Scooby Doo, which sounds like the music. But if you're asking why there's sort of a hipster language,
Yeah.
why there's like the whole laying a finger aside of his smeller
Yeah.
and giving a nod, he went down to the cellar kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's exclusionary on purpose. I mean, a lot of counterculture languages, whether it's a hip hop language or a beatnik language, or are designed to have an inside and an outside and define what that side is. I mean, like, we had the Summer of Love in '69. You got to remember that there were a bunch of hippies standing around trying to take everybody to a better place. And there were a bunch of beatniks that were convinced the world was going to hell, and they were just going to go on their own side. They were like, I am just,
Right.
later
Right.
for
So
you, Gate. I'm out of here.
I saw an episode, and the Aardvark is working on a film right now. It's a film noir, which is incredible. I've never been in a black and white film before, so this is wonderful. But I've been watching Perry Mason, and
I've been watching Perry Mason.
look at this. But they have a jazz motif in one of these shows, and the jazz people like calling Perry and the other guy Daddy-O or something like
Right.
this. And
Yep.
they are pictured as a separate entity of society, just as you said.
On purpose. They're
On
not, it's not accidental. It's not like they don't know any better. It's like they're like, yo, pops, you're not digging where I'm coming from, but this,
Right.
you know,
That's exactly what
later
they were
gator,
saying.
you know, you got the replete and the toot suit, and we're not doing any of this stuff with you.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
squares can go home.
Right, but was this a reaction to what society was going on at the time with
Sure,
wars and, you
sure.
know, and us being involved in things that other people, our own younger culture, it said no, no.
I mean, this is sort of the to me, it's sort of a reaction of the, you know, the lost generation after World War One is pretty famous, but there was that you're talking about the next lost generation, the lost generation after World War Two, and that whole Perry Mason era when we're talking about 50s hipsters
Yeah,
is
yeah,
just people who are too cool for school. But the
right.
other thing, while we're talking up Perry Mason here, is the band in those shows, the music. So first of all, Perry Mason is doing like 30 episodes a season, right?
Right.
They're
That's
not
right.
doing 6 episodes. They're doing,
No,
you can look at season 2, episode 36. You're like,
right.
oh my God. And
Exactly.
and the writing is stupendous and the music is stupendous, not just the themes, but
Right,
if you listen to how carefully every action is scored, um,
right.
that's part of the characteristic of film noir, is that you have such great jazz writing in something like, you know, Anatomy of a Murder, where you have Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn writing for Jimmy Stewart, and it just the amazing amount of diegetic and non-diegetic music that's
Yeah,
happening.
we don't know what diegetics means. All right, but thank you. I know you with the big words, but Dave, I don't care about Jimmy Stewart or the rabbit,
Oh,
the
Perry
invisible
Mason.
rabbit. I care about you. Were you in the TV? Were you on TV at all?
I've done a
Playing
couple of.
playing music or whatever?
I haven't done any live playing on TV. I have done some writing, some scoring for shows. I worked for a while for. You remember when Court TV was a thing? They had their own
Yeah.
channel, and they would produce various episodes about things, and so uh, in the usual, you know, usual way, you get to know a producer or a director, and he says, you know, this is the kind of music I'd like for this. Will you do it? So
Hmm.
I did a lot of music is done sort of in the computer. I was somebody who was good at writing for live instruments and keeping it to a budget. So I did a lot of film noir-ish kind of stuff for Court TV and a couple of other cable things.
All
Um,
right.
last time I was on screen was on Negan Farsad's comedy, The Third Street Blackout. And
What is that?
there
Megan.
was a movie called The Third Street Blackout
Third
about
Street.
5 years ago. It was a comedy award winner for Negan Farsad, and she produced this incredibly fun movie about the blackout. And Mike Sansonilla and I are part of a band playing in a bar down in the village, probably in just kind of the same kind of noir kind of scenario that you're expecting. And that was an opportunity to play live on screen, to sort of be what happened in Hollywood a whole lot of times, where you had guys who were we're essentially extras, but we're extras with a skill set.
Right. All right. So Kellyanne's in the waiting room in the
Hi,
green room
Kellyanne.
right now. I don't know if she'll get on, but I don't know. Teddy may be in the bathroom or something. I don't know where the hell he is. But you know, there was a question on Facebook, some jerk off on Facebook. He said some post or something. What is the best theme music from any TV show you've ever heard? And do you know what I picked, Dave Morgan?
What?
I picked the show Peter Gunn.
I think Peter Gunn is a great theme.
I love that din din.
So
Din.
you know that's a Henry Mancini theme.
That is Henry Mancini.
And
Okay.
so you'd also have to say another great theme by Henry Mancini is the Pink Panther.
Oh, he did that too?
And
Holy
Breakfast
shit.
at Tiffany's.
Wow.
So
He's
so
incredible.
Mancini is pretty great at those themes. Perry Mason would count as a pretty great theme tune, though.
Yeah,
You know?
it's okay. It's not
But
bad.
yes, the Peter
I really
Gunn
like
theme,
the Peter Gunn,
which sounds like Courageous Cat.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yep.
did you know Henry Mancini?
I didn't know Henry Mancini.
Oh, I thought you knew him. All right. So, what about theater? Have you been in the pit?
You ask a good question. I hadn't even thought about that. I recently finished doing a show up at Arc Stages, John Michael Chirusso's See What I Want to See. And the interesting thing about playing in the orchestra pits for me is usually the number of different instruments that you have to play. On this show, I played the flute and the piccolo, the penny whistle, the dizi, the shakuhachi, and then the soprano and tenor saxophone. So sometimes guys are writing a whole bunch of effects and it ends up just being one person doing it. So that was a fun show. There's a relatively small pit. We got to use the original orchestration. My friend Adam up there at Arc Stages in Pleasantville, they have they have what they call their next stage, which is their equity theater, and about once a year they try to do an original work or an underperformed work in an equity showcase scenario.
You create music, you perform music. Would you also call yourself a composer of sorts?
Sure. Yes.
So if I had a job and I was working on a TV thing or movie thing, and somebody asked, because I've been asked to cast things, and now I have casting credits, I could say, I know this guy, Dave Morgan, and he's an excellent composer without lying.
You could, yes. You could.
What is
usually somebody...
Is there a pat fee for that you charge these people?
It's complicated. No.
You don't have to give me exact figure.
It's not. Largely it depends on the scope of the project.
Oh,
whether it's
how many hours you think will be involved,
how many hours you think it is, how much writing, how much music there is, and unfortunately, this from being an actor. One of the tragedies in life is that usually before anybody comes to you with a creative project, they already have a budget in mind.
Yes.
They don't usually come and say, is there a fee you charge? They usually come and say, we need this done and we'd like to pay this much for it. And then you can decide, and there's a union just like you. There's a union too.
Are you in the union?
I'm in the union. So there are
what
union
scales
is that? For the American Federation of Musicians, and in New York, it's the local 802.
Okay. So you get a standard fee whenever you do one of these jobs?
Well, just like equity or SAG, you get the standard fee whenever the producer is a signatory to a union contract.
Right.
So you could do something on a buyout or something as an independent, but if you're doing an equity showcase, you get what equity has negotiated and what that theater has paid. And the same thing's true of if you play a Broadway show, nobody asks you how much you want for it. They say, this is what it pays.
Right. Which is about $4,000, $5,000 a week or something.
Well, it's a nice, as you know, the thing about the Broadway, which is probably the top theater experience in the country, the thing about Broadway theaters is it pays well when you're working.
Oh, yeah. It pays really well.
But it doesn't pay really well when you're not working. So look at the shows that are, with COVID, we still have shows that are on hiatus for that's a new thing where you get to take off. The producers are like, we're not going to be open for 3 weeks. So it's, in the old days, they would close a show. Now they're able to apparently put it on hiatus, which is tricky. So the people who are making their living playing in the orchestra pits on Broadway really, they need the steady employment because they have lives to live too.
All right, what would your ideal thing be? What if somebody offered you something to just be a composer, to get your group together, your people together? You could set it up in your apartment, in your studio, whatever, or the studio supplies you with a studio, whatever. Rather than actually performing, you could just sit on your ass, compose, write some shit up, get your people together, and then you wouldn't need to perform anymore. or would
I
you
don't think
say
I don't think
no?
I'd
I
want to
still
do
want
that.
to.
No, I still think I'd rather play. I
Really?
don't particularly want to do that. I've done uh, at various stages in my life. I've been a producer, an arranger, a contractor. Um, I've done, I've done that for theater work. I've done that for weddings and parties and corporate events. I've done that for some film work, and for me, it's more rewarding to not have to manage all the details.
Right.
It's more rewarding to have a lane to sort of ride in.
Right. But do you have a manager for your band?
No,
How does
but
that
we'll
work?
accept management. We end up doing it ourselves.
Oh shit.
I mean that usually in the current world, different managers. We've hired publicists at different times, but different managers are good for different areas of work. But to use an analogy, and not to get behind the audience here, but like it used to be, if you had a good manager and you could do comedy and you could do the college circuit, then there was a way to do a reel that could get you 3 or 6 months worth of work a year on the college circuit. In the music business, they've stopped doing that, and basically those budgets are hitting headliners. Instead of having like something once a month, they're having something once a semester, and they're paying U2 or Billy Joel or somebody to do that.
Mm.
You see Kellyanne struggling to get on, apparently.
I know, Teddy. I won't do your show if you keep pulling this shit. All right. It's hard getting good help these days. Let me ask you a question about dollars and cents. All right, we're talking a little bit about this now.
Nonsense or
Nonsense, yeah.
nonsense.
Does the time come when you're performing at a club and you say, wow, they're really offering me shit here? I got to say no to this thing, even though I want to play. I want to
Sure.
play. I want to perform. I got my bandmates here. They want money too. And
Sure. And one of the things you have to, I said this in praise of the clubs. One of the things that I've had to learn as I matured as an artist, that sounds fancy, is that sometimes those clubs don't mean any disrespect. They just have their market, they have what they do. So
right, well, coming out of the pandemic as well,
yeah,
they're hurting too, right?
they're presumably they're hurting, and crazy things that we didn't have to think about before, like
Right.
if you have a small club and you're paying rent, you're probably out of business. But if you have a small club and you own your building, you might still be in business. And if you have a small club and you have some kind of niche market where you can sell a lot of falafel as takeout, then you can stay in business.
Right. Okay.
All that stuff.
We're
The
going
model.
around the question I asked here.
I'm talking around the
Ronald
question.
Reagan.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you do? At certain,
what do you
sometimes you
do
have
is
to
the
move on.
question.
Sometimes you have to move on. Sometimes
Do you say no? Do you say
sometimes
no?
you say no. Of course we say no. I say no, and everybody I know says no to to things that aren't worth doing.
How many
That
people?
it doesn't mean I might not say yes tomorrow. I don't know.
How many people are in your current band?
The Feng Shui NYC band is 13 people. It's 9 horns and 4 rhythm, and the rhythm section is guitar, bass, drums, and percussion, which makes it kind of more exciting.
Does anybody ever sing?
Nobody ever sings.
Good. She's getting sick of it.
Because singers become singers, and then you have people in the band do sing. They just don't sing in this circumstance.
All right, I understand.
We've got a couple of people who are sort of retired.
Can you sing? Can you sing?
Only if you make me.
Do you want to?
Yes, I could sing, but I don't sing for money.
Do you play saxophone?
Yes.
Do you want to play?
Not right now. I don't want to play. I'm not going to sing. Kellyanne wants me to sing. I'm not going to sing now. No. Do I want to play live? No, I
You
don't
want to
play
sing?
live.
You said.
I don't want to sing.
See how
I don't want to
changed?
sing. I
That's
don't
a
want to
hip-
sing. You see,
that's
if
a
you
hip-
could get me to sing, right?
It's a hypnotic trick.
There's not room to dance. There's not, right.
All right. So, geez, usually people come on the show, they're ready to sing or play an instrument.
I wasn't warned.
Can you
Nobody
dance?
prepared. I can't dance.
All right. So
I can't dance.
I'd like to get Kelly on to get the 3 questions.
I know. Kelly, do you want to just type the 3 questions?
Can you type the 3 questions, Kellyanne, if you're still with us? Just got off the operating table to come to the show. That's
Accepting that I won't sing. But go on from there.
How devoted this lady from Canada is to the show. And, I didn't even know who she was. She said, let me ask some questions on the show. I don't want to be on the sidelines, so I haven't been able to get rid of her since. That's been a couple of months or something. So, that's Kellyanne, the Canadian Goose. She said goddess, but I had to demote her from goddess ranks because it was too egotistical.
Oh, Wata Goose I am.
Yeah. So, all right, I'll throw one question at you, by the way, here. Right. If you were on a deserted island, right, and you had to listen to somebody playing music, somebody playing music, who would you want to play the music on the deserted island who wouldn't make you retch so badly or whatever?
That's kind of a classic question, the Desert Island Discs. And I'm going to, and that's a hard question. I'm going to narrow my answers a couple of places. One is, I'm going to try to think about, in answering that question, I'm going to try to think about people who are alive today and making new music, because the wealth of recorded music, every jazz musician in the world would have to say, well, I would listen to Louis Armstrong and Charlie Parker.
Oh, I like Louis Armstrong.
Miles Davis famously said,
Satchmo.
There are 4 words that define jazz: Charles Parker and Louis Armstrong. So, but there are a couple of people I get a lot of joy out of listening to a trumpet player called Seneca Black.
Seneca Black,
who plays trumpet in the Feng Shui band, and he plays trumpet in a bunch of different ensembles.
Okay.
You can hear him in a lot of different places. He plays with Arturo O'Farrell, and he's kind of an amazing trumpet player. I always love to listen to him play. I love to listen to an alto player who plays with me a bunch called Jeff Burke. Who plays also works for Harry Connick.
Sorry, I didn't know I was on.
We can see you there, Kelly. That's true.
Kellyanne, you made it. All right, so those are 2 good names. Kellyanne, can you dissolve the food in your mouth right now?
For there's stuff in my face.
Right off the operating table, the Canadian Goose flies south. So, Goose, how are you? How's your tummy, darling?
Well, hopefully you'll be better soon. Hi, Dave. I'm Kellyanne.
Hi, Kellyanne. It seems like my connection is a little broken up. So,
yeah.
Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, it's just your face is like not making sounds. Yeah. But I'm just kidding. Kellyanne, do you have a question for Dave Morgan, our special guest and, musical genius, I have to say?
Yeah, well, I'm sitting in my car and I'm enjoying a fancy lemonade from our very famous Tim Hortons in Canada. And Dave, what is your favorite drink?
What is my favorite drink? I have to admit, this sounds so pedestrian, but I'm enjoying the coffee here. I have the pandemic has made me a huge coffee fan. I've gotten several little devices to make coffee in my house. I'm not a big Starbucks fan. I'm a big sort of like Keurig and different coffee maker fan. So that's been my thing of late.
All right.
Okay, that's a great answer. That's a great answer.
It was pretty pedestrian. It was pretty pedestrian. But go ahead, Kellyanne. Do you have another question for Dave, the coffee drinker?
I want to say I'm not a Starbucks fan either. I feel if you drink Starbucks, you're just melting your teeth. But yeah, my other question would be is I missed most of the interview. I was cutting in and out trying to find a connection. But Dave, what is your favorite place? Where's your favorite place to visit?
If I'm going to make broadly speaking visit, I got to tell you, I'm lucky enough right now to have 5 grandchildren.
Oh.
And so all of my kids and grandchildren live in North Carolina, and that has become my favorite place to visit.
Wow. It's not Canada?
How many, what are the ages of your grandkids?
Ooh, that sounds like a quiz question. 5, 3, 3, 1, and maybe 3 months.
He knows these answers? Holy shit.
I got 5 grandkids too.
Wow. You're also old. All right, Kellyanne, do you have a third question, my dear?
Yeah, my third question, Dave, would be what is your favorite time of day? Morning
What is your
or night?
time of day?
Favorite time of day?
Some people are morning people, some people are night people. I want to know.
We're going to have to change this. We'd have to change it to Kellyanne's crackhead question.
I think my favorite time of day we're approaching now is sunset. I'm lucky enough to live on Riverside Drive in New York, and you can see the sun coming up here, and I like to watch the sunset over the river, and I like to go to the beach and watch the sunset over the Great South Bay. And so whenever sunset is, usually is my favorite time of day.
Yeah. He's got a beautiful apartment. I've been there many times. Oh, wait a minute. I've never been invited. All right. So, Dave.
Andrew, what's your favorite time of day? Since it's a crackhead question.
All right. Anytime I wake up alive, it seems, at this point. Yeah.
That's a win.
Good answer.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. How are you feeling, Kellyanne? You know, Kellyanne was very sick today, something with her bladder or some shit.
Yeah, I had surgery last year, and they hit my bladder, and ever since then I've had problems. And so, I'm due to go back into the hospital. They wanted to go on Wednesday, but I can't do it because of the medication I'm on. So I have to wait until May 5th to get back in. So, but that's good news because I've been waiting a long time.
Okay, so. If you're interested in being a co-host of the show after May 5th, please send me an email. Kellyanne, I'm lost without you. Ask Dave. I was floundering here. I didn't know what the fuck to do.
Well, and I'm kind of a little bit lost too because I wasn't getting in, and then my head went into mush.
Yeah, Teddy does 4 different jobs at once. He's a very busy professional man.
Are you going to ask me any of my favorite questions? What's the name of the production company, Kellyanne?
I had to actually do it. What's the name of the production company?
Hello, Hooray!
She almost got it wrong. Yeah. See, sometimes, Dave, I'll ask the questions out of order, and she won't know what to do because they're out of order.
That's the only question you can ask me, though. You only get one today.
Oh, Eastport, Maine. Is that a friend of yours?
Good. Eastport, Maine. No. That Kenny Small said that there's a good sunrise there, and that's absolutely true.
That's Kenny. I know Ken. Hi, Ken. How are you?
Hi, Ken.
Always good to see you, Ken. Have you ever played the saxophone on the beach?
I have.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
What's the story behind that? I heard about this.
The thing about playing the saxophone on the beach, the one thing you have to watch out for is the amount of moisture and salt air there affecting the instrument. Everything can get all sticky if you're not careful.
Was this for an MTV video shoot?
I forget what it was for. It was for some kind of TV thing.
Right. So, do you have anything? We have sessions. We're in sessions, Daddy-O. So, we have a section of the show called Shameless Promotions. Do you have anything, Daddy-O, to promote?
Yes, I would say if you heard us talking about this feng shui band, the next time you can hear this is May 13th at the Shrine on 134th and Adam Clayton Powell, or May 15th at Chelsea Table and Stage on 26th Street in Sunday afternoon. And so you can find us on Facebook or Instagram or any of those places, Feng Shui NYC. And if you want to go there, you'll see our upcoming events to do that. That's the next 2 times we're going to be playing live. And this summer we'll be working on a new record. So looking for probably a fall or winter release for our record that you can buy now is called Shark NATO on a Plane. Shark NATO on a Plane. It's the #1 single from the record, Sharknado on a Plane. It's an incredible cover. You would love it. Andrew, you got to look this up because you'll get such a kick out of this cover. And we're on Zoho Records, ZOHO Records, and we're live streaming on all the platforms. So you can look at us, you can listen to us on YouTube or Spotify or whatever platform doesn't pay us any money you can find.
All right. So if somebody wants to go to one of these shows, do they have to buy tickets online?
Thank you for finding that. Do you have to buy tickets online? For the Shrine show, no.
Thank you, Teddy.
That's great, Teddy. For the Shrine show, no. But for the Chelsea Table and Stage show, yes. There you can see a poster for one of these upcoming events.
Okay, so before you go, you should check online to see. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
There's Teddy putting that up for us. That's very nice.
No, Teddy's good. He's very busy.
Great
man.
job, Teddy. Thank you.
He's a professional, unlike myself, who's not a professional. All right, so Kellyanne, I was very worried about you. You must know that, and you must know that. All right. See what I mean? See, that's happy music.
That was happy. I'm glad you liked that.
That's fantastic.
Yes, that was
great. I've seen him. Yeah.
That was a Chris Anderson arrangement of George Gershwin's Summer to Summer, featuring Seneca Black playing that high trumpet part at the end there.
Wow, that trumpet was lit, bro.
Yep.
Kellyanne, do you have any further questions for our esteemed guest today, Mr. Dave Morgan of the Feng Shui Band?
Yeah, what is the favorite place that you played in?
We've this new joint I'm liking a lot. This place where you just heard that record from. It's my friend Jerry Corman was curating it. It's a new place. They have the Shark Bar on the roof at the Hilton on 26th Street, and this place is downstairs. And they're doing live music 6 nights in an afternoon. Very exciting, really good sound system, really good stage, really good setup, great place to listen, good food, a win in every way. So that's a place I recommend as a new place in New York to go hear some live music.
All right, let me ask you a question before we wrap up soon. And then Kellyanne, you can ask a question. But as a young comedian, I remember they used to give us drink tickets in lieu of actual money.
I was never a young comedian.
All right. So at the end of the night, I drank a bit. So I would actually owe the bar money. So I would make no money plus owe the bar money. Do they do that in your business, give you drink tickets?
Yes, they do that in my business.
Very good. Kellyanne, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, is there a big difference in playing like when you're indoors and outdoors? Like is there something that you have to do?
Yeah, you have your outdoors, you're particularly subject to the power of the sound man, because the sound you make outside is gets dissipated, goes away very quickly. I will tell you, but I loved playing outdoors during the COVID, the sort of COVID disasters. We were lucky enough Gail Brewer had us play a bunch of places in New York down at Worldwide Plaza and stuff like that. And we were really lucky to be able to play outdoors because that was a place where you could pull a crowd and not worry about it.
Good,
Yeah, I was
Kelly.
always curious about that. Thanks for answering that.
It's a good question.
I wish somebody would buy me a ticket some fucking place. All right, so thank you, Kellyanne. We're going to close up the show now because it's been like an hour. I mean, I can't
Yeah,
do
we
this
got it.
all night here. You know, I'm sorry, Kellyanne, about your sickness. I hope you heal up because I don't want to find another fucking co-host. But
Well, and just think next week I'm gonna be I'm gonna be in Hawaii,
oh, so
and I'll be on the show.
Will you be filming live from Hawaii next week?
I'm gonna be filming live from Hawaii. I'm like, hopefully I can get some data and I'll be on a beach, but probably not.
Wow. So the Goose is
I'll be
flying.
stuck in some place.
The Goose is flying to the Hawaiian Islands. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm going there on Saturday.
Okay. Your arms must be so tired. Dave, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm grateful for an opportunity to be on here and talk to the people. Andrew, I appreciate it. It's good to see you. Kelly, it's nice to meet you.
It was very nice meeting you, Dave. Thank you. And I really apologize for being late.
And thank you, Kenny. It's so nice watching the show, Kenny. Always good, man.
Thanks for the tech.
Thank you, Kellyanne. The name of the production company is Kellyanne?
Hello, Hooray.
What's the name of the show? Say she can't do it if they don't go.
No, I've seen it. I was looking for where it said it. Aardvark interviews live.
She's looking at the board.
Aardvark interview.
What's the name of the Patreon account?
Okay. Hello, Hooray live.
Yeah.
And Aardvark or Aardvark interviews, right?
Yeah. All right. Very good. It's a clean sweep for Kellyanne tonight.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
And maybe I'll see Feng Shui again, hopefully. So look online for that Feng Shui.
Come in May. Feng Shui NYC.
All right. If I'm in
Look
New
on the
York.
YouTube, listen some tunes.
Thank you. Thank you, Teddy, our erstwhile producer. Watch us every Monday night at 5:30 p.m. Don't forget the Patreon accounts. No, I can't pay for Kellyanne's trips to Hawaii every month. Help us.
All right. Thanks a lot, Andrew. I'll see you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Kenny.
Are we done? Is Teddy sleeping again?
He's not going to let us go.
Oh, yeah?
Hey.
I'm going to leave.
He's holding
so
us
we're out.
hostage.
Dave's just going to leave.
That's what I'm going to do. I'll see you.
See you, Dave.
Thank you, Kellyanne.
They're freaking stuffing my face, and I go, "Can you see Kelly?"
Oh, look! Look at that! 2 exclamation points. He's yelling at me now. Look, it says "just log off." Just log off. I don't like the exclamation points, Teddy. We have to discuss the exclamation points. I'm glad you're okay, Kellyanne.
Are we meeting after this or no? Are we done?
I don't know. I think he's got an acting thing tonight. Is it the same thing? I don't know. Do you want to come to the acting thing? I don't know.
Yeah,
same place?
Text me. I'm going to be home. I'm just right across the street. So just text me.
Is it the same thing? The same code? Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.